Show we call The Sweat, presented by DraftKings. I am Emerson Latzia, reminding you how easy it is to bet baseball and make money in the year 2023. So you wake up, you open the DraftKings Sportsbook app, you wager on the Rays, and then you enjoy your fat, beefy profit. Because Tampa Bay just tied the 87 Brewers and 82 Braves for the modern Major League Baseball record with 13 consecutive wins to open the season. However, Gary and Thorne and Nick Fryer, the Rays may have paid a major price for it after Jeffrey Springs left an eventual 9-3 win over the Red Sox with a left elbow injury. Scheduled for an MRI today. Let's cover the bases, gentlemen, starting with your favorite run line or money line bet, Garion, and why is it the Rays visiting your Toronto Blue Jays?
It is the Rays on the run line.
Yeah!
It's sort of crazy that not only are they 13-0, they're 12-1 on the run line. They have been demolishing teams. These games have not been close. And I don't know, I'm sort of enjoying the running joke that is just how advantageous the Rays' schedule has been. So not only do you get 4 consecutive series against teams that are going to finish dead last in their division this season, you then catch the Blue Jays after their top 3 pitchers have pitched in the prior series. So now you get Jose Barrios going to the mound for the Rays trying to break this record. Jose Barrios is bad. He's allowed 12 earned runs in just over 9 innings so far this season. There's been some bad luck mixed in there, but no amount of bad luck can cover how bad Barrios has been. The hard contact rate way up. Over 50% of the batted ball events he's allowed so far this season have been classified as hard contact. He's only 14th percentile in baseball among qualified pitchers in terms of opponent hard contact rate. When you're talking about a Rays offense that has a 160 WRC plus through the first 2 weeks of the season, I think a guy like Barrios, who's struggling, is just not going to be able to find himself tonight. I think the Rays win pretty handily, so I'll take them at plus 125 on the run line.
Fryer, are you brave enough to fade the Rays tonight?
No, I'm not going to fade the Rays, but I'm not going to go and talk about them because Gary already did a great job of it. I will say the Mets on the run line is an interesting play going up against the A's. You got Caprillion on the other side, and he's been awful to start the year. I'll talk about him more later. The Pirates as an underdog going up against the Cardinals. I like them too. They won yesterday, of course, but the team I want to talk about is the Cubs going against the Dodgers in LA at plus 140 right now. Justin Steele versus Noah Syndergaard. I am going to go with the Cubs in this one. I know that the Dodgers have gotten a ton of action, but the odds have not adjusted since I checked around this time yesterday. Public's going heavy on the Dodgers right now, but the sharp money is with the Cubs. We know Justin Steele, he's been tough to start the season on opposing hitters, so I feel comfortable with that. And then Noah Syndergaard was good in his first outing, but he definitely struggled the last time out. So give me the Cubs at plus 140.
Fryer, let's continue to cover the bases here. Let's hit up second base, a game total you are targeting tonight on the DraftKings Sportsbook.
Well, I know producer Samir is not going to be happy with me, but when it comes to totals, I do tend to cheat a little bit and not go with game totals straight up. Yes, I'm not sorry about it, though. I care about giving people winners. And Mets over 2.5 runs in the first 5 innings at even money is a winner today because, again, James Caprillion is on the mound, and he has been brutal to start the year. He has not made it past the 5th inning this season, and in each of his 2 starts, he's given up. Opponents have comfortably gone over this number. 5 runs first time out, 7 runs the next time out. I know the Mets don't have crazy numbers against right-handed pitching to start the season, but they did roast Corbin Burns last time out. I know he's been iffy to start the year, but he did do well in his 3rd start of the season for the Brewers. And then you look at what the Mets did against Yu Darvish last time out. I know that it took 6 1/3 innings to get 5 runs, but they still got to him for 5 runs and a far better pitcher than Caprillion, who, again, has gotten cooked to start the year.
Care Bear, game total. Go ahead.
Let's take the over 9 in Baltimore against Chicago. These are 2 teams that have really hit the over well so far this season. Baltimore is 9-4 to the over. Chicago is 8-4-1 to the over. And a big part of that for Chicago's side of things has not been that they've been scoring runs. It's that they give up runs, like a ton of them. Their bullpen is really injured. I guess you can't really hold that against them, but they've been bad so far this season. So if you did want to just focus on a team total here, I would be far more interested in just taking Baltimore over 4.5 runs as opposed to Chicago over 4.5 runs. But I think in general, this game is probably going to get there. Baltimore's been one of the best offensive teams in baseball so far this season. They are one of just 3 teams with an isolated power above 200. They have the 3rd best WRC plus in baseball as well at 120. On Chicago's side of things, they at least look like they're going to get Yoan Moncada back tonight. That'll definitely help lengthen out their lineup. And Mike Clevenger, who's starting this game for the White Sox, has looked terrible so far this season, an 8.49 expected ERA. His opponent ground ball rate is just 22%. That is how you give up home runs, by giving up that many line drives and fly balls. I think this game is going to be really high scoring. But like I said, I think Baltimore is going to do a lot of that scoring.
Gary, into the hot corner we go. What is a profitable player prop right now you anticipate tonight?
So Taijuan Walker's strikeout prop is really interesting tonight. It's set at 5.5 with the overpaying plus 130. One of the reasons that's so juicy is because Taijuan Walker does not know where the ball is going when he is pitching right now. He has walked 8 guys through his first 9 innings, but he's also struck out 10. He can strike batters out. That's something he can do. He's going up against a pretty weak Reds lineup tonight. The Reds have the 6th highest strikeout rate in all of baseball. They also have the 3rd lowest zone contact rate, which basically just means even when they're getting pitches to hit in the strike zone, they are swinging and missing. That is generally the sign of a really bad baseball team. So I think Taijuan Walker can have his best start of the season. I think he flirts with 6 innings, and if that's the case, I think he pretty easily strikes out 6 Reds.
Nick, who are you looking at on tonight's slate in the props department?
You know, I've talked about the Mets-A's game quite a bit, and this is going to be the 3rd time I do it. They do say triples is best, and I think this is the best of the 3 plays that I'm talking about here. From the Mets game, James Kaprielian under 17.5 outs recorded is at plus money right now. I'm kind of stunned by this when I talked about it before. He has not made it this far in a game. He has not made it into the 6th inning. In order for this play to hit, he has to get through the entire 6th inning. I don't understand how that's going to happen for him today. You look at what the Mets have done. I know it's been up and down for them, but still too much firepower here. Kaprielian gives up a ton of fly balls. I expect him to get smacked around throughout this game, and I don't expect that to be into the 6th inning.
All right, we're heading home on our Covering the Bases segment here, Mr. Nick Fryer. Let's poke over to DraftKings. Let's get some DFS love for you. Give me a bat you like.
So 2 games that I have touched upon so far is the Cardinals game and the A's game, but on the other side of it, and I'm going to keep doing that here as we get into the bats here. Pete Alonso is my favorite high-priced bat, and I want to talk about him more, but I do want to touch on Ji-Hwan Bae at 3.8K. He's done well against right-handed pitching this season. I don't like Wooford today. I like the Pirates in general, so I think he's a good value option. Pete Alonso, though, again, to talk about Kaprielian, he's given up a lot of fly balls, 4 home runs in 2 starts. Right-handed hitters have a 57.1% fly ball rate against him and a 50% hard contact rate. In general, he does give up a lot of fly balls, but obviously he's been really rough against right-handers to start the season. I know Alonso doesn't have like a good average, and that can turn some people off against right-handed pitching to start the year, but he does have a couple of home runs against them. He's hitting more ground balls than usual, but still getting a lot of fly balls and a decent amount of hard contact, which also leads me to think, too, that the over on his total basis prop, it's plus 125. That's also an interesting play for you guys today.
Gary, and how much money are you going to spend on your favorite DFS bat tonight?
Over 5K, but I think he's worth it. Julio Rodriguez, he's actually had a rough week. His numbers aren't as amazing as some of the other stars to start the season. However, he draws a really nice matchup tonight in Austin Gomber, who, even outside of Coors Field, I do not trust at all. Gomber has been rough against right-handed batters so far this season, as you would expect for an underwhelming left-handed pitcher. He's giving up an opponent 588 slugging percentage to the right-handed bats he's seen so far. That's 4 doubles and 2 home runs, so a lot of extra base power we've seen when teams go up against Gomber. Julio Rodriguez is in a spot tonight where he's probably going to get 5 plate appearances batting out of the leadoff spot for the Mariners. I think they can score a lot of runs, and even if Julio doesn't have the extra base pop going tonight, he's clearly making a concerted effort to try and steal 40 bases this season. He's been very aggressive on the base paths, 4 steals already. So I think he can make up for some of that power we haven't seen yet by stealing a couple bases.
All right, Gary, and let's go quick on this last one here, your DFS pitcher.
I'm giving Kodai Senga $10,000 to make me a star.
Damn.
He's the only really good pitcher on this slate. I mean, there's just not a lot of guys with upside on this slate. He's $10,400. He's the most expensive guy, but he's going up against Oakland. He struck out 14 in the 11 2/3 innings he's worked so far this season. I think he's honestly one of the few guys who has the potential to score 30 DraftKings points tonight. So you kind of have to start there and find a cheaper guy to complement him, even if the ownership is going to be crazy.
All right, Fryer, he's the best available, but take us somewhere else.
I'm just going to say this. Senga's good, but he's no Roy Donk. I just want to put that out there. But if you're trying to save a little bit of money to go with Senga, Johan Oviedo against the Cardinals today, 6K. Of course, that's his old team. He did well against them last season, and he had a good start earlier in the year. I know he struggled last time out, but when you look at Oviedo did last season, every time that he struggled, he bounced back every time, putting up goose eggs. So we've seen him do that already, get close to 30 DK fantasy points in his first start of the season. So if we can get that today, looking at the Cardinals too, they're just coming out of Colorado. Obviously, they got skunked yesterday. I don't know if they're going to get skunked again today, but I don't like a team leaving Denver in that first series afterward.
All right, Nick Fryer with our special I Think You Should Leave baseball segment. Well done. You two take a breather, but do not go far. I need you to dish out some NBA playoff picks for this weekend's games. Right after Julian and a special guest from VSiN on the Unreasonable Odds podcast helps us out with tonight's final two playing games.
I think that some of these, now all the money, if we're looking at the splits from DK Sportsbook, which you can find at vsin.com, everybody loves this fun OKC Thunder team, which I do too, but the Thunder coming off that great performance, the Bulls coming off that fourth quarter comeback, but they're going to, Miami hasn't even traveled. They're staying in the same, they've been in Miami all along. They've been off since Tuesday. They're coming off an awful game. I tend to think Jimmy Butler and the Heat bounce back against a Bulls team that they are 0-3 against this season. And in the Minnesota game, I think Minnesota is going to play pretty well at home. Going back to the Miami one, Chicago probably shouldn't have even won that game. Credit to their comeback, but the 18 of 36 free throws, that's kind of fluky in my mind. So I'm kind of thinking home teams on Friday night. Haven't played anything yet. I don't love 5.5s, but we'll see. I'm leaning home teams. Your thoughts there?
So my stronger opinion would be with the Eastern Conference one. And actually, I looked at Chicago, and I'm going to wait to see if it gets to 6 and play Chicago. I think one of the things for Miami, they've been super overvalued all year long. They're the worst ATS team in the NBA, 30, 51, and 2 now after losing outright to the Atlanta Hawks. The market's just been really high on them. And if you look at their revamped starting lineup, well, you have some pretty weak defenders in that lineup now, right? You've got Tyler Hero, you've got Max Strus, you've got a bunch of guys that opponents can pick on. The Hawks did that, and I think the Bulls are going to do that too with some elite, ISO scorers that they have in their own right in Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. So I'll see if it gets to 6. The market seems to really like this Heat team. I would think that that's going to get there, but I think that's a way to look. And I'm also interested in this thing over the total. I know it's super low, and I know it's a faux game 7. But as I mentioned, this is a weaker defensive team. They're 22nd in defensive rating since February 13th, where they rejiggered their starting lineup. I think this might be a little bit of bottom down. We saw it with Chicago and Toronto, right? That thing bottomed out at 212, ended up going over that really low total because of the end there. I think that you might get another instance there too. So I'm interested to see where the total ends up, but stronger side lean there towards Chicago. If I get 6, I'm in.
Tomorrow, we begin the wonderful, exhilarating ride that is the NBA playoffs. 14 of the 16 seeds are locked in. The 8 seeds in each conference will join them tonight. In the East, it'll be either the Hawks or the Heat. In the West, the Thunder or injury-riddled Timberwolves. Garion and Nick are back. As of right now, Mr. Fryer, what's your favorite futures bet on the DK Sportsbook?
So first of all, I think the Final Four is going to be Sacramento, Denver, Milwaukee, Boston, and I do think the Nuggets are going to win that win out of the West. They're plus 380 to win the conference right now. Looking at what's going, we have the Clippers in Phoenix. I mean, that's going to be a great first round series, but they're going to abuse one another, and I would imagine that's going to be a 7-game series. And the same thing could happen with the Lakers and the Grizzlies as well. Everybody's down on the Grizzlies right now, and understandably so. But I don't think they're just going to roll over for LeBron and the Lakers. So I like the Nuggets at plus 380 to win the West. And another thing too, when you look at the exact outcome market, because I like the Nuggets right now, I think it's either the Bucks or the Celtics coming out of the East. I think everybody feels that way. There doesn't really seem much wiggle room unless there's injuries. For the Bucks to beat the Nuggets, it's plus 1,400 on DraftKings Sportsbook for the exact outcome market, and then the Celtics is plus 1,600. So I think both of those are worthwhile. Whichever East team you like more, I do think they're going to end up facing the Nuggets and beating them.
What did I say? I said the Hawks earlier. I meant the Bulls. So wide open West, 3 dominant teams in the East here. Postseason should be pretty awesome, Gare Bear. What's your futures pick du jour right now?
Yeah, I think it's a lot more fun to kind of find something long shotty in the West, like Nick was talking about. I've talked a lot about the Nuggets so far this season, how important it was they locked down home court advantage. I think it is still important to talk about the Grizzlies, though, and Nick sort of started to get into this, where This is the number 2 seed in the Western Conference. Yes, they've got some injury issues in their front court, but they're currently ranked with the 5th best odds of any West Conference team to win the NBA Finals. I know the Lakers are super public. I know the Warriors are super public and deserve our respect, but you don't really get many opportunities like this. And aside from the Nuggets, it's the Grizzlies who have home court advantage in any series they might encounter in the Western Conference, which is important because they've outscored opponents by 10.6 points per 100 possessions at home this season. That is the best net rating at home of any team in the league. I know there's this weird sort of animosity towards Ja Morant. He's back and he's playing fine. Like, the Grizzlies are still a very dangerous team. I don't think they're going to have much trouble with the Lakers, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think the Lakers are a very flawed team. And you really do want that sort of 2-3 slot path to the Western Conference Finals, because that way you avoid the Nuggets or the Suns until the Western Conference Finals. Like, if you're Memphis and win that series against the Lakers, suddenly you're playing either Sacramento or Golden State, a Golden State team that can't win on the road. So I think that's kind of where you want to be. I think they have a pretty advantageous path.
All right, Gare Bear, we talked tonight's playing games yesterday. We just heard Jules discuss it on the latest Unreasonable Odds podcast. So let's push ahead to Saturday's slate, and we'll start with the early game. Best bet for Brooklyn and Philly here.
So I'm going to take Brooklyn's team total. Right now it's set at 102.5 and go with the under. I just think they're really going to struggle to score points. This is kind of your old school NBA mentality. You need a star to sort of step up and function as the linchpin of your offense in a playoff series. I think you do. The game slows down even more than these two teams make it slow down during the regular season. I mean, over the last 15 games of the regular season, the 76ers had the lowest pace in the NBA. Brooklyn had the 3rd lowest pace in the NBA. So already this is going to be a very slow, methodical half-court game. I just don't know how Brooklyn is scoring in the half court. Obviously, Mikal Bridges could have a big game, but aside from that, I just don't see a path to them putting up all that many points. I think Philadelphia has a really good defense, particularly at home. I think there's a reasonable chance that Brooklyn doesn't score 100 points.
All right, Nick, Nets have a 4-1 record against the spread when they're an underdog by 8.5 points or more this year, though.
Yeah, and I'm not going to go with the spread there, but there is a spread that I am interested in. If you look at the head-to-head market, you go to the points. You have Tobias Harris versus Spencer Dinwiddie, and Gary was talking about it. How are the Nets going to score in the half court? Well, apparently DraftKings Sportsbook thinks Spencer Dinwiddie is going to outscore Tobias Harris by around 5 points. So I'm a little surprised by that. See Harris getting 4.5. Once I saw this market, I was like, okay, Harris versus Dinwiddie. I would think that Harris is going to be the one who's got to have a little bit of advantage here. But plus 4.5 points, I'm taking him there. Minus 105. And look to outscore Dinwiddie straight up, plus 245. I know Dinwiddie can have big games. I mean, I like Dinwiddie as much as anybody does. But Philly shut him down last time these two teams met. And I know Harris, like, he's not all of a sudden unstoppable. I'm actually not a big Tobias Harris guy, but we've seen him do some of his best work in the opening rounds of playoffs in the past. I know Dinwiddie gets a little bit more shot volume, but Harris is a better shooter. So this one just does not add up to me. I think you can't go wrong either way, but I will take the 4.5 points at near even money.
All right, Nick, best bet for Atlanta at Boston here. Celtics 9-point favorites. These teams faced off 3 times in the regular season. C's winning all 3 games by an average of 13.5 points, too.
Yeah, and look, I don't blame anybody for taking the Celtics on the spread here. It's just a large number. I'd rather not mess around with it, see what things look like, because I know the Hawks, I know it's a different team than the Celtics saw last time in the postseason when the Hawks and the Celtics met, and even before that, but it's always, a little bit of a battle. I'd rather go with the Celtics over on their rebounds right now. That minus 120, so you're laying a little bit, but it's 44.5 right now. In the last 9 games that Robert Williams has played, they've gone over this number 6 times. In 2 games where they went under, they had 43 boards. Also, the Celtics went over this number in 2 of their 3 games versus Atlanta this season, and the Hawks gave up 51.6 rebounds per game to their opponents throughout the season.
Care Bear, what's your bet of the game?
So I mentioned earlier, Memphis has the best home court net rating of any team in basketball. Second to the Grizzlies are the Celtics, who are also outscoring their opponents by more than 10 points per 100 possessions at home. I think that stat you gave Emerson about the season series is actually pretty telling. And look, season series stats in the NBA generally don't mean a whole lot, but I think there's something here. I think Yeah, you did it. Thanks, buddy. I think the Hawks just struggle with elite teams. They are 0-6 ATS their last 6 games against teams with a 600 winning percentage or better. They are 11-27 ATS their last 38 games, road games, against teams with a 600 winning percentage or better. They just can't beat the elite teams. And Boston is an elite team. I think Boston is going to do what they did all season to the Hawks, which is just blow them out. So it's a big number, like Nick said, but I'm willing to take it. I'll take Boston -9.
Garion, how hard is it to get a read on the third game tomorrow afternoon? We get the Knicks and Cavs. Knicks went 3-1 against Cleveland this season, but isn't Julius Randle still a question for this series?
Yeah, we don't know. It seems like a lot of the beat reporters think he's going to play. Whether or not that means he's actually 100% is sort of left up for interpretation. We'll find out more when I think they're usually releasing their injury report around 12:30 or 1:30. So we'll know more then. And that does sort of tie into this prop that I like, which is Jalen Brunson over 2.5 made 3-pointers at +155. I like this number even if Randall is available, but if he's not, Jalen Brunson's going to have a usage rate well over 30%. I think he's going to have to take a lot of 3-pointers in this game, especially considering how stout the Cavaliers are on the interior with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. We saw this matchup play out in the regular season back on March 31st, a very encouraging Knicks win in that game. Brunson was 7 for 12 from 3-point range in that contest. I don't think he's going to hit 7 every single game of this series, but I think the 12 number is key. I think he's going to probably take somewhere between 10 to 13 3-pointers in most of these games, playing an expanded role, playing more minutes than usual, and he's a 41% shooter from 3 for the season. So I think if you give him that kind of volume, he's definitely going to make at least 3.
Cavs didn't have Jared Allen in that game, Gary, but the Knicks played without Julius Randle. Nick, a breakout season for the Cavs. If Randle can play, how fun do you expect this series to be?
Yeah, I mean, even without Randall, I think it'd still be a very fun series because the thing about the Knicks is I like the Cavs. I love Evan Mobley. He is my guy. But the Knicks are like that kind of team that's too dumb to know they're not actually as good as they're playing. Usually you run into like younger teams where that kind of happens. But this is a team of like kind of misfits in a way. Like I know Jalen Brunson got paid and Julius Randle has blossomed there. But before that, he was a bit of a misfit too. And then Emmanuel quickly, obviously we've seen what he's done. He could be the 6th man of the year if it's not Malcolm Brogdon. So I think it's like this team, as much as you look at all the numbers and everything and who they're missing, I still think the Knicks can put up a fight without Julius Randle, and that's why I do like them against the spread tonight at +5.5, because we also know the Knicks were great as road dogs this season against the spread 17-11, and I know the Cavs were automatic against the spread at home, but when they ran into the Knicks last time, I know Gary raised a great point about how well Jalen Brunson shot, but still, they ended up winning that game. They didn't slow him down. I think that the Jalen Brunson play is great either way, like Gary highlighted, but I do like the Knicks to cover tonight.
All right, Nick, best bet for Golden State at Sacramento. It'll be the nightcap on Saturday night, the 4th of 4 games. Warriors, a big winner here. Andrew Wiggins back and available.
Yeah, I mean, and that's great. And look, I know it's the Warriors, and they deserve our respect and yada, yada, yada. People can change, but not overnight. So I don't expect that to happen to the Warriors, where they've been terrible on the road all season long. So just give me the Kings on the money line right now. It's a 1-point spread, so it's a pick 'em. The Kings have not slowed down at all throughout the season. Obviously, getting that 3rd seed. And the Warriors, I mean, they don't know how to play on the road. I get getting Wiggins back is huge, but still, I would imagine there's some level of adjustment. I don't think the Warriors are just going to get smoked throughout the series, and I don't know necessarily. I think the Kings are going to win this series, and I do think they're in the Final Four, like I said earlier. But I still think this could end up being a fight, but not in this first game.
Gary, how about this stat? The Curry, Clay, Wiggins, Green, and Looney lineup has a +21.9 net rating, by far the best of any NBA lineup that's played at least 300 minutes this season.
It makes sense. They're all really good players.
Yeah.
I just don't know if Andrew Wiggins can step in from a 2-month absence and be just an absolute elite force on defense like he was in the NBA Finals. I think that's a lot to expect from somebody. He's also got a minutes cap in this game. I think they're saying about 20 to 25. I'm with Nick. I'm just going to take the Kings on the money line. I mean, yes, I can understand why people are so hesitant to trust the Kings in this series. They've got to go up against the reigning NBA champions. They don't have Steph Curry. They don't have Klay Thompson on their roster. But the Warriors were absolutely atrocious on the road, like one of the worst teams in recent NBA history in terms of their road performance. That has to mean something. It has to mean something for at least one game. I'm giving the Kings one game to prove that they can beat the Warriors in Sacramento. So maybe game 2, this all changes, but I will give the Kings a chance here. I'll take them on the money line.
All right, gentlemen. Well, speaking of meaning something, one of 2 NHL games tonight, final day of the regular season. Again, one of 2 actually means something tonight, and we're going to break it all down with Jeff Ulrich coming up.
Yo, DraftKings, y'all got the most ways to bet on NBA players. I'm hyped. Hitting props, that's my dog. Stack up buckets, blocks, and boards on my boy? Or superstar going one-on-one against another superstar? Oh, it's on. And all these bets are on my man's dedicated page? Now you spoiling me, DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and bet $5 to win $150 in bonus bets on your team to win. Action so good, why bet anywhere else? That's my move. He used my move.
You know, betting without a game plan is a little like skating a giant ramp without helmet and pads. I wouldn't risk it. And I wouldn't bet without a game plan. DraftKings Sportsbook provides you with tools to set a realistic budget and time limits, so you're ready to bet responsibly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook and Casino apps to learn more about how you can practice safe bets.
This season, DraftKings Sportsbook is your place to bet on the greatest sport on ice. There's so many ways to get closer to the game. And with this latest offer, you can win big. Now that is deserving of some victory stick taps.
Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, sign up with the promo code, and take advantage of this great offer.
And get in on the action with an official sports betting partner of the NHL.
With DraftKings Daily Fantasy Sports, you can play for millions with a lineup full of big NBA stars. Maybe you throw in a three-point specialist that's been around the league, seen a thing or two. You know, if you want. Download DraftKings and play for your share of millions. Action's so good, why play NBA anywhere else?
All right, so the bracket for the Stanley Cup playoffs is nearly complete. 2 more games tonight. Sabres, Blue Jackets means absolutely nothing. Buffalo just extended the longest postseason drought in NHL history to 12 years. I'm proud to be married to someone from the city of Buffalo. In the West, though, Jeff Ulrich, how about this? If the Avs win tonight, they will overtake Dallas for the Central Division title and will play the wild card Seattle Kraken in the first round. But if Colorado loses, they're going to begin their title defense against Minnesota. So it's good to have you here. Right now, your DFS play will start in the meaningless Sabres Blue Jackets game. What do you want to do?
Hey, no games are meaningless, pal.
This game is absolutely meaningless.
These have a lot of things going on. No, I mean, look, it's about as meaningless a game as you could possibly imagine here. I mean, like, Tage Thompson isn't playing for the Buffalo Sabres. The Blue Jackets, I don't even know where they are in the Connor Bedard sweepstakes, but certainly they don't want to win tonight. I think that if you're looking at this game, one player that really sticks out, Tage Thompson isn't playing, and I think that does boost the opportunity for a player like Victor Olofsson. Olofsson is at the 27 goal mark. It's kind of an interesting spot. I really like him for an anytime goal tonight, around plus 200 or just over that, but you could also look to him in DFS. I think there's a lot of upside. Again, I mean, we're talking about the Blue Jackets. Yeah, they had a nice little upset win, in their last game against the Penguins, but it's meaningless for Pittsburgh as well. Olsson's going to get more opportunities, going to be in the ice a lot, and he's only 3 goals away from 30 goals. Again, I'm not suggesting that a hat trick is a lock here or something like that, but if he does get an early one, don't be shocked if the Sabres just start feeding him pucks. These are the kind of things that generally happen in these meaningless games. So definitely like the Buffalo side. I really don't have anything to say about Columbus, except that they're probably going to get pummeled tonight because Buffalo still has a lot of high-end forwards, Alex Tuch, Olsson, who I just mentioned, Dylan Cousins. So I like the Sabres quite a bit here, and that's certainly the side I would lean to on DFS.
What's your best bet for this game, though? You just mentioned Tage Thompson, goal scorer prop.
So, no, Thompson is out for this game.
So he's out for this game.
It's Victor Olofsson I would be targeting here for a goal scorer prop. And again, if you could get him for a multi-goal score prop, I would. But, Olofsson, again, just getting more opportunity. He's actually been a little bit hot from the goal scoring standpoint as well. I don't hate just playing the Sabres straight up. There's the goal scoring props there. I like Olafson's odds there. Getting over plus 200. This is even just in a regular spot with Tage Thompson in the lineup playing the Blue Jackets. Those are pretty decent odds for a guy who gets a little bit of power play exposure as well. So Olafson, shoot first kind of player, definitely the kind I want to be targeting here against Columbus. And like I said, the Sabres to win in regulation today, you're getting pretty good odds. They're minus 700 on the straight up money line, but minus 105 on the 60-minute line. I really don't hate that at all. I think Buffalo is still the vastly superior team here, and it'll probably show even in a meaningless game.
All right, much more relevant. Avs at Preds. We've already mentioned what's at stake here for the defending champs. Your DFS play tonight.
Yeah, so for DFS, I mean, again, it's going to be a lot of the same story. If you're playing, Showdown or if you're playing the 2-game slate, you're just going to want to stock up on the Colorado Avalanche. They're healthy now. They've got Arturi Lehkonen back. I really like Lehkonen as well. Just from a straight DFS standpoint, I like him better on 2-game slates. He carries that second line for them. He's been really hot since he's come back. Going to be playing against a Nashville team who's going to be starting Kevin Lankinen in net. So there's no Juicy Saros factor. They're banged up. But Lankinen, he's got 5 points in his last 2 games. Like I said, he's going to be carrying this second line. And when you look at who he's going up against, I mean, it's basically a bunch of AHL players for the Nashville Predators tonight. Duchesne's out. They have just a bunch of players who just aren't playing. All their star players, they weren't that deep to begin with. So this is going to be feeding frenzy here. I also like Mikko Rantanen. If you're looking at Showdown purposes, stacking him at the front, he's been extremely good of late. Valerie Nichushkin gets bumped up to the top line. I think that just helps the playmaking ability there for a guy like Mikko Rantanen getting fed the puck. If you're looking at the other side and you're playing Showdown, Tyson Barrie probably isn't a terrible target. Not a terrible value target. He's playing a lot, has those offensive capabilities, but I just don't think Nashville's going to score much tonight. They are just fielding a very weak team, and they're facing a Colorado team who has a lot to play for, quite frankly.
Yeah, and they're facing a Colorado team that's already knocked them off 3 times this season. This is the 4th meeting between the 2 teams. So how are you going to navigate this one on the DK Sportsbook? What's your bet?
My bet for last night, my favorite bet on the board was playing the Colorado Avalanche to win in regulation against the Winnipeg Jets. I'm going right back to that. You're still getting minus 140 to take the Colorado Avalanche just to win in the 60 minutes. So obviously if it goes to OT, you're not going to win the bet. But if the Colorado Avalanche win tonight, minus 140 in the 60-minute line, you're golden. And I really think that's the play. I mean, I get that they played last night. They are starting. It looks like they may start Pavel Francouz here. It's a little bit worrisome because Francouz hasn't played much and he's the Rica goalie. But, again, you look at the Nashville Predators lineup, there's just not much that's going to hurt us here. Even if Pavel Francouz allows 3 or 4 goals, there's every chance the Avalanche score 6 tonight. I think Colorado on the 60-minute line makes too much sense. Minus 140, that's where I would go.
All right, before we wrap up our NHL segment here, what's your favorite future right now looking ahead to the playoffs? Again, whole East field is set. West will be locked in after tonight. And we got our Oilers and Connor McDavid poised to make another deep run, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, look, the time to get on the Oilers was last month.
Yeah, the smart ones did.
And they were, plus 1,400, plus 1,800 even around some places. So that ship has sailed. I think that now if you take a look at the futures odds, where I would go is the Dallas Stars. The Dallas Stars about double in the odds, or plus 1,500 as the Oilers. And, we're talking about the two seeds in the divisions in the West here, the Oilers and the Stars. I do think the Oilers are the superior team, but I don't think there's this big a difference between the Oilers and the Stars. I think the Stars are going to have a very winnable matchup, assuming they match up against Minnesota and Colorado takes up care of business tonight. And look, if Colorado falters, they're going to get the Kraken, which I think is even an even better matchup for Dallas. So I think Dallas is in a good spot in round 1 regardless. They're plus 1,500. Again, it's just a value proposition. I do like going to the West for Stanley Cup futures still. If you're going to look, it's Vegas or Dallas right now for me. I just think there's a path for one of those teams. I still am. It's not that I dislike or I'm out on Colorado. I just think there's a chance for them to get upset this year, mainly because their goaltending is it's just a little bit of a question mark. Again, Alex Georgiev has never really played a full season in the AHL as a starter. So give me the Dallas Stars as best value. And if you're looking for a first-round upset, I like the Jets.
Yeah.
The Vegas Golden Knights, plus 140. That is going to be a close defensive series, and the Jets have the better goaltender. And I'll take the better goaltender in a close defensive series all day, plus 140 for the Jets to do the upset in round 1.
All right, man, we got you here all day, at least the rest of this show. Your job is just getting started. We'll talk some USFL DFS plays right after we take on the latest stop around NASCAR. Pierce Dietrich will join us right after this.
Welcome to the Price Check. I'm Pierce Dietrich. Let's look at the salaries for Martinsville, whose salary jumped up this week. Martin Truex Jr. $8,700 up to $10,300. Hendrick has owned the short tracks this season, but JGR is not too far behind. Truex had top 5 speed at Richmond. Eric Almirola, $6,100 up to $7,200. Speaking of top 5 speed, Almirola says he had it at Phoenix. He had top 15 speed at Richmond. Austin Cindric, $5,800 up to $6,800. His sophomore season has not shown a lot of progress, but in his defense, the opening schedule has been at a variety of tracks and a variety of packages. Whose salary dropped this week? Ricky Stenhouse Jr., $8,900 down to $6,000. It's the dirt drop or the dirt dump. He was very expensive at Bristol. Now he's back to his normal salary, which might be a little too low. Tyler Reddick, $10,700 down to $9,100. Martinsville is one of his worst tracks, and that was with a crew chief that was an expert at Martinsville. Chase Briscoe, $10,200 down to $8,600. All of last week's biggest increases are this week's biggest decreases. The SHR cars have been strong in the new short track package. Favorite play of the week, Kyle Larson, $10,600. It's Larson or Byron. It's probably both. These two Hendrick cars have been unstoppable in the new short track package. Todd Gillen, $5,500. Quietly, Front Row Motorsports is building fast race cars. Gillen had a top 15 at Richmond 2 weeks ago. He had a top 15 in the last Martinsville race. All right, guys, check out DK Nation for all your DFS information and needs. If you have NASCAR questions, find me on Twitter at Race for the Prize. I'm Pierce Dietrich. Catch me on DK Live.
Back here on the threat. This is the latest stop in NASCAR right now. So we got the NOCO 400 at Martinsville Speedway. More short track fun at the Paperclip. Pierce Dietrich, who joins the party. Jeff Orwick, of course, is here because Jeff, our top NASCAR analyst. Pierce, what type of driver are you going to be targeting this weekend? Maybe for anyone who didn't just pay attention to your price check.
Yeah, I used to live right down the road from this NASCAR stop.
Wow.
Turkey Cock Mountain Road down to 220. So I'm pretty familiar with Martinsville. It's old school, legendary short track. And that might not be the cup of tea of everyone, but we know what to expect. We've seen about 70 years of this racing. It favors the big dogs. They're going to stay up front. They're going to lead a lot of laps. They're going to run a lot of fast laps. The long shots are extremely long shots. You probably don't want to bet them. You probably want to stay away from the fantasy. 400 laps, that means you've got to target drivers that are going to get you fast laps, laps led. And it's going to come from the expensive guys. Probably need 2 or 3 of them in your lineups.
I can't get the picture of you standing on top of an RV now in your tank top, wearing jorts, mashing Bud lattes. What?
I've got one.
You've got an RV? You took it out there all the time,
lives in
didn't
an
you?
RV. Why do you think he's got that background up every day?
Oh,
It's
yeah,
hiding the
I
picnic
camp
table
out.
in the background.
Yeah, come on, man. I'll party.
All right. Oh, my God. I love this new version of you, Pierce. Jeff, anything you'd like to add to that?
Not really. I mean, Pierce obviously has a little bit more experience in terms of the track than me, but yeah, it's a short track. And I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is, don't throw a ton of, I mean, if I can't find any long shots to bet, you're not going to be able to find them either because I love betting long shots. And it seems like a very, very thin line for someone, in the even the plus 3,000, plus 5,000 range for betting to get it done. So definitely a week 2 for DFS and maybe better for stars and scrubs. You're gonna want as many top end plays in your lineup as possible.
Jeff, you got to go down to the Rad Torque Raceway there by the Edmonton Racetrack in your neck of the woods.
Okay.
Favorite high-priced driver, Pierce? I have the answer because I have your DK Nation article pulled up, but I'd like you to say it.
Yeah, well, the guys haven't really changed much this season. It's Larson and Byron. If you get them both, put them both in your lineup. Hendrick has clearly nailed the short track package. And, usually at Martinsville, there's only a few drivers that we can pick from. But this year with the new short track package, it's even slimmer pickings. So you take the 2 Hendrick guys. Byron won here last spring. Larson almost won in the fall. And then you could also look at the JGR drivers in Bell and Hamlin, who've been pretty good this year. They're just about a step behind the Hendrick cars, but Bell won last fall, and Hamlin actually won or led the most laps. We have changed the rules package a little bit, and that's given Hendrick the advantage. But I think all four of those guys are at the top of the list.
Jeffrey Ulrich, who's at the top of your list in the salary department?
Yeah, so I mean, Pierce talked about all the top guys. So I would say, again, like starting lineups with one of them is definitely the way you should go. But if you're going for a second man in, I would probably try and get in Joey Logano as well. His average finish at this track is like 5.2. So, I mean, it's actually better than a lot of the other top drivers. He had a terrible race last week, but I mean, that's kind of Joey Logano. He kind of crashes out and then he wins the next week. He's certainly done that at points in his career. I think it's a pretty good spot for him. I mean, he's got experience obviously on this track. He likes it. And again, you take out like one or two bad races, and he's been right there with most of the top drivers in the other ones. So Joey Logano at 9,900. Again, I don't think you'd start there because you're just avoiding too many of the top end drivers, and one of them is probably going to win. So, but as a second person into lineups, yeah, you're getting him under 10K. Really like that.
Yeah, Pierce Dietrich has him ranked 8th in his rankings this week. Pierce, out of your top 5 drivers, only one is less than $10,000, and it's all the way down to 8,400. Who's your top value option behind the wheel?
As we mentioned before, the long shots are very long, and so you got to kind of lower the bar a little bit with your expectations for your value plays. And I like Corey LaJoie at $5,000. This is way too cheap for a guy that's finished 22nd or better in 4 of the last 7 at Martinsville. This is one of his better racetracks. A 20th place finish may not sound very appealing to most fantasy players expecting that home run, but you don't often get that home run value play at Martinsville. As we said earlier, this track really favors the elite drivers, the top tier teams, and a 20th place finish from Corey LaJoie at this price point could work. If we were going to make kind of a comparison to baseball, sometimes with that value punt play, you just need a single or a double from one of your value guys, and that's kind of what you're going here for with a very low expectation, safe value play.
Yeah, it's low expectations for sure. He's 3rd from the bottom in salaries. Only 2 dudes are cheaper than him. We're entering like tight end 3 territory here in the NFL season with you too.
Oh yeah.
Jeff, who's your value play today?
Yeah, no, but I mean, again, like you're probably not going to get a guy from the 6K range pop up and do like a top 5. So cheaper is better. I kind of like Eric Jones for the same reasons. I like Pierce's play better because he's so much cheaper, but you're going to have to double dip down here if you're going to really make a stars and scrubs lineup. I think Eric Jones, a driver who's finished top 20 at this track in 3 of the last 6 seasons. Again, like he's been okay this season as well. Had a top 10 finish 4 races ago, was 5th or 3 races ago. Top 20 last week as well. It's not out of the realm of possibility that he gets you in the top 15, and then those placing points just matter so much. So double dipping below 7K is good. I also like Kevin Hardwick, who I was going to mention in the first segment. He's only 8,400, and again, like when you're going down the rungs, I think I kind of just like stacking as many drivers over 8K as possible because. What have we seen from him? I mean, we've seen a bunch of top 10 finishes. Was pretty good on a technical track last week. A 9th. I think Harvick is a pretty good target at 8,400. Looks a little bit underpriced just in terms of value as well. So, definitely dipping down there under 6K if possible is going to be important. But just looking for value really after you've gotten your top 2 or 3 drivers in is going to be the most important thing this week.
Virginia is for lovers. Pierce is the tourism and travel slogan of the U.S. Commonwealth of Virginia. You love your RV. Which bet do you love for this weekend's race on the DK Sportsbook?
I love Virginia too. It's a very good state. I'd suggest
good peanuts. Very good peanuts.
It's a nice place to live. I like or love Kevin Harvick, to mention a guy that Jeff just brought up. If you look at Group C in the betting groups, Harvick is plus 190, and I don't think anyone in that group can really match him. Tyler Reddick struggles at Martinsville. Chris Buescher is good, but he's not Kevin Harvick. Brad Keselowski has been really good at this track in the past, but he's no longer with Penske. He is trending in the right direction, but again, he doesn't have the equipment that Harvick has. Harvick has been really good the last couple of years at these short flat tracks. SHR has built fast cars at those tracks consistently, and this year at Richmond and Phoenix, he had top 5 speed. No one else in his group in Group C has top 5 speed. I think Harvick is a shoe-in that category.
You got a shoe-in bet for us on the DK Sportsbook, Jeff?
Yeah, I was going to go Harvick over probably Ross Chastain at -110. I definitely don't hate that, but let's talk winners a little bit. I mean, again, we're talking about these top end drivers potentially having a really good shot at winning this week. I mean, why not go back to Kyle Larson, who's now plus 800? I mean, we're always talking about Kyle Larson at like plus 450, even plus 600. Now he's plus 800. I mean, if you're going to take a shot for me this week, I mean, those are pretty solid odds. They may not sound like massive odds, considering people who follow me already always hear me talking about guys who are 50-1 in golf, but like plus 800 in this race, I think makes a lot of sense. Also, like Joey Logano at plus 1200, but I think Larson is obviously the superior driver. Has already won this season. I would not be shocked if we just get a clear bounce back here. He's certainly, to me, just looks a little bit underpriced there at plus 800.
There are 28 species of frogs in the state of Virginia. You can also find a tree known as the dwarf pawpaw with fruit that tastes like a cross between a banana and a mango. So we have clearly taken a hard left here, and we'll take another one as we go to this weekend's action in spring football. Because if the XFL wasn't enough to scratch your pigskin itch, Pierce, then the USFL has got you covered. The league's second season kicks off tomorrow. 4 games in 2 days. You can see them on your screen. Time to pretend like we know who these guys are. So, Pierce, give me your favorite DFS play under center, please.
I have been to the Pawpaw Festival in Southern Ohio. I'm not a big fan of the fruit, but just throwing that out there.
I love that, dude. I bet it sounds like it'd be a great fruit for a smoothie, to be honest with you.
It's not. It's just one of those regional things.
Okay.
You just get an orange. I don't know.
Sounds better than it is.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Case Cookus. He took over last year, and we expected Brian Scott to be the guy in Philadelphia. Then he gets injured. Cookus comes in, and it's a heavy pass offense. And one of the things when we go into these leagues, we just don't know what to expect. But Bart Andrews was expected to be a pass-heavy guy for the Philadelphia Stars because that's what he did in other developmental leagues, and that's what he did. And so we can expect a lot of usage. Another thing I just want to mention, though, we take like our fantasy perspective of 32 teams, and now we only have 8 teams to select from. When you have 32 teams, there's just a wider range of outcomes. You're going to have quarterbacks that throw for 300, 400 yards, multiple touchdowns. When you only have 8 quarterbacks to choose from, the outcomes, it's fewer, and so you got to lower the expectations. So when we look at XFL or USFL, 250 passing yards is great. 2 touchdowns are great, and Cookus gives us our best option at getting there.
Jeff Ulrich, who do you have as your quarterback of the weekend?
Yeah, it's a great point about the quarterbacks. I mean, you don't need to be trying to hit a home run. And I think the problem, too, with the USFL, and we've seen this in the XFL, is some of these quarterbacks are still in timeshares. I mean, there are multiple teams in this league who are potentially looking to play 2 quarterbacks in a game. So you have to be careful. Cookus is definitely one of the safest options. I'm going to go down, though. McLeod Bethel Thompson for New Orleans. And again, the New Orleans Breakers. New Orleans brought in a new coach, John DeFilippo. He was pass heavy when he was in the NFL. McLeod Bethel Thompson, if you don't know who he is, he's a CFL star. Won a couple Grey Cups. This dude's thrown for a lot of touchdowns, a lot of yards in developmental / minor league football before, and he's only 8,300. And he's got, in my opinion, one of the best coaches probably in this league. So especially from an offensive perspective, I really like going down there. I think he gives you a lot of the same floor and upside that Cookus does. But those are 2 of the more, what I would say, secure quarterbacks. There's guys like James Morgan down there who, again, we don't even know what the situation is, and he's on a terrible team, I think. Some of the more rushing heavy quarterbacks you can look at. DeAndre Johnson for New Jersey, I don't hate, but I think Cookus and I think McLeod Bethel Thompson are 2 solid quarterbacks that have a real shot at getting you, like Pierce said, 252 touchdowns.
All right, Jeff, who is atop your USFL running back rankings?
I mean, it's got to be Bo Scarborough here. I mean, people are talking about Bo Scarborough as a potential MVP candidate. Really came on in the kind of second half of the year. Actually, really wasn't. There's really no. I guess it was the second half of the year. He didn't start playing until like week 6 or something last season. But he had 3 100-yard games. Scarborough, if you remember him, was kind of a third wheel for the Detroit Lions at some point. He was their power back. He's got talent. He can certainly dominate these weaker defensive lines, and he kind of proved that last season. They're in a pretty good spot. I mean, New Jersey is going to be a good team, but again, Birmingham, Obviously, kind of class of the league as well. Only 8,800. I also don't mind Reggie Corbin here. Again, going to be on a run-heavy team. It's a tougher matchup against Houston, but Corbin is going to get a lot of work. He's basically back in the exact same role. So Scarborough, to me, is where you start, but you could also look to double dip there with a guy like Reggie Corbin.
Pierce, who's your running back?
Running back position is pretty deep. We got a lot of guys returning from last year, so some familiar names. But I'll take an even more familiar name, Alex Collins from the NFL. 5 years in the league, 4.1 yards per carry, almost rushed for 1,000 yards in one season for Seattle. He's only 28 years old. It is a little bit risky. We could take some of the guys that have established themselves in the USFL, but I'm just going to lean on the talent. We don't really know what to expect from Memphis if they're going to be pass heavy with their new quarterback. But I just like the talent with Alex Collins, and that's where I'm going to go.
Tell me where you're going to go with wide receiver, Pierce.
Bailey Gaither. And, he's a guy who kind of surprised us last year because he wasn't, didn't have the pedigree of other players, wasn't as athletic or big. He wasn't the star guy that we were looking at. But it really shouldn't have surprised us because it's the USFL. And it's not easy for these guys to complete passes.
Yeah.
The lines aren't very good. The quarterbacks aren't very good. And so what we saw was a lot of times the guys running the short, quick, easy routes had some big weeks. Now, Gaither didn't play every week, but in the weeks that he did play, and he was running those short slant routes, he piled up the numbers. I expect him to do that again. This is also a team that only won one game last season, so they're probably going to be in some pass-heavy scripts in the second half of games, and he's going to get a lot of cheap yardage passes.
Yeah, and then you open up and you're building a roster on DraftKings. You can see like wide receiver and tight end are actually in the same category here, Jeff. So you could go either direction here if you want to give me your top wide receiver or tight end.
I mean, you could. I mean, the tight end pool here, though. I mean, there's not much to talk about. Jay Sternberger is there, for Birmingham. He would probably be the one name that people even recognize. And I mean, again, from a talent perspective, Sternberger was kind of like a bit of a hybrid wide receiver tight end anyways. He's on a good team in Birmingham. You could look to him. He's 4,700, certainly as a cheap flex option. But, I mean, you really should probably be sticking to wide receiver. Again, we don't have a huge league, so there's just not going to be some of those teams where, they have like a tight end acting as a wide receiver one. So don't feel like you need to do that. A couple different players. I certainly like the wide receiver position. Johnny Dixon, again, returning to basically what is going to be a pretty solid, top one, top two role for New Orleans. It's going to have, I think, a far better just environment with a better quarterback in Bethel Thompson and a better head coach in John DeFilippo. Really like that combo. You can fit him in because Bethel Thompson's so cheap. And then Corey Coleman for Philadelphia just looks way too cheap for me. And this is a player who won top wide receiver in college at one point, was kind of, was a top round pick and was pegged to be like a sure thing in the NFL and just never worked out. Corey Coleman has always struck me as a player who has the talent to make it in the NFL. Just for whatever reason, it never worked out for him with the team. But I mean, in this league at 7,500, I mean, whenever he's this cheap, I would get Corey Coleman on your roster. So two wide receivers I'd be looking at there, Dixon and Coleman.
Fun fact, I covered Johnny Dixon in high school. Kid was a man among boys at Dwyer. That's it, guys. I'm out of here. I'm going to go study more about the state of Virginia, Pierce. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out with us all week long. We're back here in studio. Matter of fact, we're not. We're going to be in my living room Monday morning, 11 o'clock Eastern time. My dogs will be there. I hope you join us. Oh, yeah. It's going to get weird.